Hey, Drew, guess what?
What?
We're in an advertisement.
Well, that is neat.
Anchor has asked us to help advertise the platform we use for this very podcast.
Using Anchor has made it really easy for us to distribute our podcast across almost every streaming service and has helped us grow to the point we're at now.
Yeah, thanks, Anchor. You're the best.
If you have any questions about using Anchor, please reach out to us. We'd love to share our personal experience with you and help you get started doing your own podcast.
All right, let's start the show. Okay, campers, rise and shine. And don't forget your booties because it's cold out there.
It's cold out there every day.
Wow. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was a reading from the classic 1993 Groundhog Day. Do you feel like you're living in Groundhog Day, Drew?
You know what? Chris Sinclair, co-host of the Good Bottle podcast. Yes, I do right now. It's been, you try to mix it up and you try to do different things, but obviously with all the shelter in places and all that fun stuff, yeah, every day seems like it was the day before, and the day before that, and the day before that. So, yeah. Groundhog Day has gotten a lot less funny because of the reality that we're currently living. And with that said, let's talk about what we usually talk about. And this week we're actually mixing it up because it has been a little bit repetitive for all of us. And so instead of doing a sampling of like a mystery spirit, how we usually do, I think what I'm going to do today is talk about a cocktail that I have been making almost nonstop this entire quarantine, to the point where I actually made my own syrup for it too. And anytime you can get me to do something extra when it comes to cocktail making, that means a lot. And so what I've been
it's true because you're lazy.
It's so true. Like people get like I'll buy simple syrup, but I buy the cane simple syrup, and I've had multiple people tell me, they're like, well, why don't you just make your own simple syrup? And I was like, because this is available. Like, why would I do that? Like it's so easy to make. I was like, it's not as easy as me grabbing it off the shelf and then paying for it. So yeah, I know. But so what I made, or what I have been making almost nonstop, and I kind of do this when I'm making cocktails, when I'm trying to like learn them and stuff like that, is I've been doing a jet pilot. And it has become...
I've been really fascinated by the fact that you've been so fascinated by this drink.
Yeah, I don't know why I haven't gravitated towards it more before this time, just because it legitimately has all the characteristics that I want in a drink. And yeah. I don't know if
it's quintessential tiki drink.
Yeah. And so with that said, I mean, that's kind of a nice segue into, do you know who created the jet pilot, or allegedly created the jet pilot?
I don't.
Okay. Do you know who Stephen Crane is?
I don't.
Okay. So Steve Crane is kind of like the lost founder of tiki. So you have Don the Beachcomber, you have Trader Vic. Those are like your two like main guys, right? And then in terms of the modern era, you have like Sven Kirsten, Beach Bum Barry, Martin Kate. Like those are kind of like your almost Mount Rushmore-esque with +1, for your top for your top guys in tiki. Well, there was this guy who owned a place in Los Angeles called the Luau, and his name was Steve Crane. He was actually an actor who wanted to have just a restaurant, and this is what he kind of came up with. And it was during the 1950s when tiki was at kind of its peak, and he actually ended up being in the restaurant industry for a little over 25 years. But he's a person that's often credited with a lot of creations, but for whatever reason, just never kind of gets his due when it comes to tiki creations and his influence on the entire tiki culture. And so the jet pilot, which is believed to have been created in 1958, was also capitalizing on what was referred to as the jet age during that time. And so that's when, you had people were breaking the sound barrier, like, jet pilots were rock stars and all that fun stuff. And so you had a lot of drinks at the time that were kind of named after that kind of stuff, right? So you had, like you said, the jet pilot, there's the test pilot, there are all kinds of different references to aviation during this time period. But this is a really fun drink, and all you need to really know about it is that there's 2.5 ounces of booze in it, and if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. But
that's yummy.
So the way that I've been making mine is it calls for 3/4 of an ounce of moderately aged rum from Puerto Rico. So I use the Barlito, and then another 3/4 of overproof Demerara rum. So I use Lemon Heart, and then an aged Jamaican rum. So I use one of Plantation's expressions for that. And then you also throw in some cinnamon syrup. That's the thing I had to make myself. That was a fun learning experience. Falernum, grapefruit juice, lime juice, of course, a little bit of absinthe, and a little bit of Angostura bitters. You just shake those all up, pour it out.
Why was making cinnamon so such a learning experience?
Well, I just think that because as you're like when you do it, and because obviously I reached out to like multiple people, right, and they'd be like, "Hey, how do you do yours? How do you do yours?" Because I feel like although syrups should theoretically be kind of streamlined, every time I see someone talking about syrups, like they have their own little twist on it. It's kind of like a daiquiri, right? Whereas like daiquiri has this pretty standard ingredient list, but the people are like, well, I do a little bit more of this and then a little bit less of that, and then kind of go from there. And that's how I have like my perfect daiquiri. Whereas like with syrups, I feel it's the same way. Where it's like, oh, I go 2 cups of water and then 1 cup of this, and it's just like it's back and forth, and then I let it steep for overnight, or I do it for 2 hours, and you have to do it warm, and then it's just like all these different factors that play into it. So, and of course I'm going to overthink everything because I have nothing but time on my hands right now, and that actually happened. But it ends up making a really delicious drink, and when you have 3 of them in a night, you just get wasted. So, especially when
that sounds great.
Yeah, especially on that last one when you really kind of up the ante on the 151. So that was a good time. So I encourage people to go out and make yourself a jet pilot. It's been one of my favorite things about this lockdown is that I've been making a lot of those, and they've been delicious. And speaking of that, what have you been doing during the lockdown? How are you keeping yourself busy? What's going on with the shop?
Oh man, so we took some time off. We knew that there was going to be a peak in illness this last week, and honestly, our spidey senses and paranoia just kind of got the best of us, and we decided to close down so we wouldn't bring anything home to our families. I've got the newborn, and M has her daughters, and so we just thought it was smarter just to take it easy and not force anything. So we shut it down until next week. And I did get a little bit sick, but nothing terrible. I'm still here and kicking. So we're still good.
That's good. And then you guys actually did some pretty cool stuff in terms of your initial reaction to the virus and what you did for bartenders. So can you talk a little bit about like your videos and then also your delivery service that you established?
Yeah. So the videos was really just about a gut reaction, saying, okay, we have a plan. We have something that is actionable, something that we can do, something that we can, it's just shit that we've done a million times before. And it was dirty, it was crude, and it was just, get it done. And I just called a bunch of homies and who I knew who were going to be out of work. And I said, come on in and let's make a video. And I worked with Jose over at Empress who reached out to a lot of brands, and he handled that. And so we were able to partner with a lot of people to really just get a little bit of money into bartenders' hands. When their bars were shutting down, and when people were super uncertain about what was happening, and the news was changing every single day. So that was really important for us, was to give people at least a little bit of hope, so people weren't feeling so, I don't know, just defeated, you know.
Right.
But then we got the order, to the lockdown order, so we had to shut that down. And I still have ideas about how we're gonna launch that again, so people can do it from home. But it's just gonna take a little bit extra work, just because obviously I can't take my camera equipment and bring it to everybody's house, because that defeats the point.
Right. Totally. That makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of a difficult thing to do. And then what about your delivery service? I thought this was a real hoot, if you will.
So I'm always of the mind that, like, if I have a problem in our technological age, that there's an answer that for my problem already in existence. And I don't even know how I came up with it. I was just thinking of, you know what it was? Okay, here. Sorry, I have to go back through how the logic worked out. I was talking to one of the bartenders from Empress, who I was trying to figure out how to give him a job. His name's Yvonne. He's an ex bike delivery guy, like bike messenger. He's got a big old trailer on the back of his bike that he can haul around a bunch of weight on. And I just thought it would be kind of cool to be able to have people see where he is, as he's driving around. One thing leads to another. We had some complications with working with him. Actually, he had a scare of being sick himself, so that's when I stepped in. And really, it just turned out we found this app and called Glimpse, which just allows me to share my GPS coordinates, on a map, just like you were following me on, I don't know, like you were following like an Uber driver or something coming to your house. And I loaded up the trunk with cocktails and cookies from what's Vince's cookie company name? Critter Confections. That's what it is. And just drove around town and sold booze out of the back of my car, like I was a little ice cream truck. It was kind of cool.
Cool. That is cool. That is way fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's been kind of a cool thing.
What's great about it is what it means now is that I can, because we did so well on that, I can now turn around and I can approach other restaurants who might be struggling, or just everybody's struggling now, so that it really doesn't mean very much. But I can turn around and I can say, hey guys, like, I want to partner with you this week. Let's do burritos, or let's do falafel, or let's do, I don't know, something that boxes up well, so I can go out with food, and more people can stay at home, and we can bring variety to people's lives while they're staying at home, so less people have to leave. I don't know. It just seems like a great idea, sort of all around. We'll see how it works and how it plays out in the future. But I'm pretty excited about it. It's something new. It's something fun, and with the relaxed rules around alcohol and this new weird reality that we're living in, it's just no reason to not be creative.
Yeah, no, totally. I absolutely feel the same way. And it's been really cool to see what people have come up with, during this time, and, in a way that we're connecting in ways that we never have before, while staying away from each other, which is weird.
Yeah. I will say though, I think people are starting to. At least my hope is that people are starting to like appreciate their loved ones that they live around a little bit more often, and take solace in being home with their families.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think for myself, being able to spend this much time with my daughter at this age is crazy. Like in what scenario do you really get to have kind of like this amount of uninterrupted time, which is really fun. And I do miss uh, doing my job and working with people and coming up with like cool spirits for people in their bar programs and stuff like that. But I think that's kind of where my virtual happy hours have come in to kind of give me that fix. And um, but I do love the fact that me and my daughter have for sure gotten closer over the past 3 weeks. And there's just no doubt about it at all. Like for the longest time, she was
Yeah, I
always
mean,
about
how
always
can you
about
not?
mom. Yeah, yeah, and that's so it's been really fun because I think we've when we do get out of this, we'll always have kind of like this special thing, this bond that we've been able to develop, which I think in any other situation, you know, probably I don't know if it would have happened the same way, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what you've been doing, and then like I said, for myself, I've been hosting virtual happy hours, um, and that's been really interesting as well because you have like this group of people, then sometimes you know them, sometimes you don't, and you're all kind of jumping on these Zoom calls, and it's really kind of fun to see people's reactions and questions and stuff like that. And we've done it where I have a guest and we talk about different stuff, and then we do a little Q&A. We've had some good people that are really good public speakers. We have some other ones that aren't as good, and it's also like a weird form because even like the good public speakers, it's not like how you can like read a room and things like that. There's a transition period that you kind of go through, like that first 20 minutes when you're trying to figure out exactly how to discuss things and explain things to a computer screen, essentially, or your phone or
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
And it's been really cool to see that happen. And I think for myself, one of the things I like about it is usually after I'll hear from a couple of people that are like, hey, thanks for bringing a little bit of normalcy to my life. It was fun to talk spirits. It was kind of fun to learn something new right now and see a bunch of people and stuff like that. And then the other thing, which I thought was really, I think is really funny, is I've put together a pretty decent lineup of people so far for the virtual happy hour, and then I have the rest of the month planned out, with guests, 3 days a week. And my favorite thing so far has been like people reach out to me like, "How did you get that person?" And I was like, "Well, I asked, and they said yes." So it was pretty complicated, and I mean, we're for sure benefiting from the fact that people are not doing a whole lot right now, so they have a lot of time to say
Sure.
yes to things like this. And I will admit, there's a couple people that I kind of shot for the stars, and at least in my mind, I did, and I didn't, and I would have been totally fine with like a no, and they said yes, and I was like, oh my god, okay, great, like let's do this, you know, which is
Yeah.
which is
I
really
mean, I
cool.
think that's kind of the fun part about jumping into this sort of line of work of broadcast and whatever it is that you want to call that we're doing here. Um, is sometimes you just got to ask.
Well, and
And
and I think
I
I think
think
about it.
most people are pretty down to talk.
And they are, and I think we know that just being in this industry is like when you reach out to people, if you're reaching out to something that they care about, they're more than likely going to talk to you if they have time, you know. And
Right.
with this situation, which is this kind of cool because we're all in this together, where we don't know what the hell's going on, we don't know when it's going to end, and it kind of sucks to a certain degree, but there's no real experts, right? So when we entered the podcast, arena, there still is, and there will continue to be lots of different podcasts out there. So we entered a very busy arena, and I think we're holding our own. We're doing good. We have a lot of listens. People are tuning in, and they want us to do this stuff. With the virtual happy hours and things like that, no one's the expert. Everyone's just trying to figure it out as they go. So
Yeah,
there's
it's a
not
whole new medium.
Right. So there's not like this level of clout that you either do or don't have. Like people are just kind of like, yeah, I want to talk about that stuff. That sounds cool, you know. And that's been kind of like the fun thing for me is seeing that kind of come together, and then now seeing my friends do similar things and get like different people and stuff like that. Like my guest list has kind of been kind of all over the place. Like I reached out to some friends. I also reached out to some people I didn't know, but I've always wanted to talk to. And again, those are the ones where I was like, I don't know if they'll say yes, but I'm going to ask. And at the very minimum, I'm going to develop maybe some sort of friendship out of this, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to those conversations. And, you know, part of me is like, man, I kind of wanted this to keep going for a while because I just like keep racking up guests. And then, you know, the sobriety kicks in. Is like, no, this needs to end sooner than later, but maybe I'll continue to do it after. And I have been working on some projects that I've been putting off for a while that, you know, now that I have time, I can be like, okay, now this is when I launch this and this is when I launch that. You know, I always talk about building brands and stuff like that. And I think one of the things that'll come out of this for myself, at least, will really kind of be what my brand is and how people can access it, you know? So that's what I'm really
Sure.
looking
Yeah.
forward to. But that's enough of the catch up and the cocktail talk and all that fun stuff. I think we got to jump right into our normal stuff. Which, by the way,
Are we going to dive right in?
we're going to dive right in. And people, I a podcast that we actually respect quite a bit, and I'm not going to say who it is because we don't plug other podcasts on here. Is they're actually like kind of taking our model and running with it, and they're much bigger than us.
No.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So the difference is that
it's
they're
been a
only
good run.
they're only doing one story, and they're only going to talk about whiskey. So we do have that
Okay.
going for us. But they're doing like a news focused show, which is awesome because it's going to be great. Because like I said, the podcast is amazing and they do such a good job. So I'm excited to listen to it and stuff like that. But again, I'm not going to plug it. So not till we get big and get sponsorships.
That's right.
But so jumping right in. Yeah, our first story is actually going to be about production, and production specifically in Mexico, where the Mexican government has come out and they have deemed basically different industries essential and non-essential. So the sectors that were deemed essential included health, security, transportation, logistics, telecom, energy, food, and non-alcoholic beverages, grocery, etc. So with that being the interpretation, you have a lot of different productions down in Mexico doing different things. And a lot of people are still trying to vet what this really means in terms of what the Mexican government has said. But some of them have already started to react. One of them being Corona. The production of Corona will actually cease until the, I guess the recommendation is lifted. All the different companies down there are reviewing it themselves, but Corona has, which is InBev, I believe, or are they Constellation?
They're Constellation.
They're Constellation. So I'm sorry, Constellation. They have ceased production on Corona at this time, and you know, basically because it's deemed non-essential by the Mexican government.
I never thought I would ever feel bad for a mega company like Corona, but man, they've really gotten screwed over this past few months.
Well, you know, they've definitely caught some flack, right? And in terms of just like the optics, it doesn't look great to have the name Corona right now. But
it sure does not.
But some of the follow-up articles that I've been reading about the story and stuff is that they actually really haven't taken a hit financially. They thought they were going to, but now that the numbers are actually coming in, you know, they're actually fine. So we really don't have to feel bad for them. I mean, obviously, I feel bad for anybody who was working in that facility because now they're out of the job. You know, here in the States, I'm not too sure. Oh no, I do know of some going on, but like beer production is still continuing. Most
Yep.
most distillation has stopped, but the reason distillation has stopped is because people are producing hand sanitizer as opposed to their distillates now. So people are still technically producing, but now they're just producing hand sanitizer, which is awesome. Um,
That's great. Yeah.
but then, down in some of these countries, like I had a friend who sent me this article and was like, well, what's going on in Oaxaca? What's going on in some of these mezcal producing places? And I think it's it varies way too much. I mean, I know for some of our palenques, 3 weeks ago, 3.5 weeks ago, when this was like really starting to gain momentum in the news and the spread was very evident, most of the palenques shut themselves down to all visitors. Anyways, you got to remember that in Mexico you don't necessarily have the easiest access to medical facilities. So for a lot of them, they're like, we're not even going to reach it. We're like shutting down towns. I mean, like Ray Campero, for example, is produced 4.5 hours outside of Oaxaca City, and it is not an easy road to get through. And Romulo's dad is, I think he's in his 70s, so in that kind of danger range. So a lot of people kind of shut down in terms of letting people in, but in terms of production, um, haven't really seen that. Um, so it's just, I don't know. It's such an interesting time. You wouldn't think that a big powerhouse like that would shut down. And the government didn't explicitly say that these companies weren't essential, but because they omitted them from listing essential things, that's why they're kind of taking their cue to be like, all right, we're going to shut it down.
Yeah, and good for them for I'm taking initiative, I'll say.
Yeah, right. And so that's what's going on with Corona. I'm sure we're going to continue to see more and more stories like that. I did mention a couple other companies down there in regards to like distillation. The Diageo distilleries remain open, so they have Don Julio and Casamigos that they're currently producing down there. The Jose Cuervo distilleries and different agricultural units remained operational, and it just seems like at this point, um, only the Corona brewery has shut down. So we'll see what happens. Moving on, the next thing I wanted to talk about, and this was kind of a weird one, and we're still trying to vet it to a certain degree, but it's a very new story, and it has to do with Brown-Forman and the family that once owned Herradura tequila. They've actually been locked in some sort of like copyright infringement. These two sisters, who I guess were the daughters of the previous owners, have been locked in a copyright issue with Brown-Forman over the last 10 years that has just been kind of going in those legal, you know, just circles. Nothing really ever getting
The
done.
loops.
The loops, and they were using all these different loopholes and stuff to continue to push off this judgment against Brown-Forman, and they actually just received a judgment from the Federal Court of Administrative Justice rewarding the rights to the sisters, and the sisters are now suing Brown-Forman for $625 million in lost
That's amazing.
revenue. Yeah.
It's
And
just
so,
amazing. I mean, that's
yeah.
just
And what that is basically the U.S. copyright laws allows you to sue up to 40% of like, I guess it's like profits, 40% of profits over a certain time period. So that's what that number roughly looks like over 10 years with Herradura. And like I said, we're going to continue to vet this until we can figure out, because there's a couple publications out of Mexico that's talking about it, but nobody in the U.S. is talking about it. Now, granted,
yeah. I was blown away when you brought this to me.
yeah,
That I hadn't seen it. I was blown away. How is this not something that's pasted on headlines?
well, I think it's a couple of different things. I mean, obviously, when you're in the middle of a global pandemic, other things take precedent. I mean, and that was, I mean, we've talked about this over the past
That's
couple of weeks.
fair.
Like one of the reasons that we weren't recording the podcast was because our whole format relies on these top stories, right? And when every single top story is nothing but coronavirus, like what, I mean, we don't want to beat a dead horse, and people, people are, I mean, both of us are trying to survive this and, make both of our jobs work and our businesses work. And it's just kind of like, man, I just don't really want to talk about coronavirus anymore. But I think, yeah, I just wonder, what's going to happen. And, fortunately I have Google Translate. And so I was able to read this article, because if you don't, it's written completely in Spanish. And it, most people go on their phones. Most phones don't have that. So I don't know what we're going to do in terms of, if this is going to be legit and if it's going to really get legs, because obviously this is a big deal. Herradura is a big deal for Brown-Forman. And if they don't have rights to it, I mean, even though, because I'm under the impression that they bought it, but
Right.
maybe
Well, it's one of the top selling tequilas in the country, which of course then makes it one of the top selling tequilas in the world.
Right. So, yeah, man. Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea what's going to happen. And, but if you can find information on it, like, definitely go out there and do it, because I don't think this is something that just goes away, and this is a lot of money. And within this article, there, were some court documents shown, so it certainly seems legit. But, I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah,
But
I'm curious who we could reach out for at Brown-Forman and see if we could get a quote from them.
I think their quote would be, "We're not commenting on this at the time," and "Who the fuck are you?"
It's worth asking.
The order on that might be switched, but and then onto our final story of the day, and this is possibly my favorite one, and I think one that we can actually have a lot of opinions on, is the TTB actually issued a 140-page document this past week that had all kinds of different proposals, conversations, and different labeling potential acts that are going to be going into effect. To circle back on TTB.
Oh yeah, this got exciting.
Yeah, this is something that TTB regulates all of the labeling and a bunch of other things. But for this conversation alone, this is just going to have to do with labeling of spirits in the United States. Again, this is a 140-page document, but when you're on quarantine, you have time to read it. So with that being the case, there was a lot of stuff in there. And I'm going to highlight the things that I thought were really interesting. And then if there's any that you want to add in there, throw that in the headline, and we'll go back
Gladly.
to it. So my personal highlights were the new agave classification, definition of an oak barrel.
I knew you'd like that.
Multiple distillations, and then age statements. What were your favorites?
Those were actually them as well.
Okay, perfect.
I was interested in the vodka as well, and the multiple distillation claims is something that I'm going to be keeping my eye on, because I'm curious how that's going to come into practice.
Yeah. Okay, so if I feel like we have time, we'll come back to vodka, but how I feel about vodka. So, the new agave.
Playing yourself there, Drew.
I know that. I also know it bothers you, so I'm going to continue to beat that drum.
That's fair.
The new agave classifications. This one was really interesting, and it's important to remember that all the things that we're going to talk about right now, these are proposals that have been brought by the TTB, in which there has already been a first set of responses from TTB, not members, but like your distilleries, your producers and stuff from around the world. And then as well as the response to what people say. So like they put out a proposal, if I'm a distillery owner, something like that, I can then respond to that proposal and give my reasons why that's either a good or a bad idea. And then the TTB then issues another response. And that's basically what this document is just a proposal, some of the feedback, and then the response to the feedback and whether or not they're going to move forward with it or not move forward with it. So with the new agave spirits classification, I thought this was really interesting because basically what it's doing is it's going to take the agave classification of tequila, dissolve it, and then create a new umbrella category called agave spirits, in which tequila and mezcal will fall underneath it, and then you will have multiple other variations within that. So, with that being the case, what are your thoughts on the new agave classifications?
Well, I think it was a great example of how the times have changed. We have embraced consuming, Bacanora, and I'm curious if they're going to put Sotol under there, but we've embraced consuming lots of different agave spirits, and I think that it just shows a change in time and a change in culture, and I'm actually relatively impressed that they have met the time so soundly. It doesn't seem like it's ahead of its time. Doesn't even really feel like it's behind the time. It seems really appropriate. This is being discussed now. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm totally with you, and I think what this is doing is going to open up this category for a lot more people to get their stuff into the United States. With agave being put onto the labels and stuff. So, you're not going to be as restricted as you might have been before if you had to go through your own state government and stuff like that in terms of getting different certifications. One of the ways that that these regulations of the TTB has had before, that it was described as voluminous, complex, and arcane. This was described by Matt Petrick, who's one of my favorite writers when it comes to the alcohol business. And I don't think you could be more correct about that assessment. When you have something that's so outdated, it's hard to classify these things. We ran into that with our Chiranda expression from Michoacan. It's a sugarcane based distillate.
Sure.
It's a rum, to most people, but from Michoacan, it's called Chiranda. The TTB couldn't understand it because they didn't have a classification for it. So we had to put rum in quotes on the bottle, right? Now,
right.
That is not something that was like a deal breaker for us. But when Chiranda means what it means to those people, and you can't just have that on the label, it sucks, right? Because it just shows how ignorant we are as a country to other people's spirits and stuff like that. This agave spirits category is supposed to kind of be a little bit more flexible and allow more things in. Now, of course, we're going to run the risk of people abusing that. And it was really funny. Our mutual friend, Craig Reynolds, who does some really cool projects here in California, I had posted it on my Facebook. And at one point I was going, and I still need to do it, but at one point I looked at the comments and Craig had commented, and he was just like, "Drew, you need to call me. We got to discuss this." And I was just like,
yeah, I saw that.
I was like, okay, I need to do this, and I will, because actually I have really great conversations with him about this kind of stuff. But he comes from a government background, so I'm sure he sees kind of the writing on the wall, what this could potentially mean. But on the very surface level, kind of assessment, I mean, having something like this that allows for more flexibility is something that I'm looking forward to.
Well, Craig himself is someone who I feel would specifically benefit from this, right? Because his Dos Volcanes is outside the legal area for being tequila, and he has listed on his label what distilled from agave, right?
Yeah.
That's I believe on the label. So I'm curious as to if he will change his label or anything. Probably not, but
yeah, because what you could do is you could change it to agave distillate, and and stuff like that. And there are still the rules still apply where it has to be at least 51% agave to be considered an agave distillate. And then there was some responses to that where they were like, okay, if you're going to do that, that's great, but then also please include another subsection of 100% agave, because obviously that is a big deal for people as well. Yeah,
Huge
and
deal.
then one of the next things was, and I think this is like a really beautiful throwback to how dumb the TTB can be at times, but they wanted to define what an oak barrel was. So they
Yeah, that was
yeah, they
funny.
had proposed to define oak barrel as a cylindrical oak drum of approximately 50 gallons capacity used to age bulk spirits, and specifically sought comments on whether smaller barrels or non-cylindrical shaped barrels should be acceptable for storing distilled spirits, whether the standard of identity requires storage in oak barrels. Um, and just to show you like how many people are clued into this kind of thing, almost 700 comments came in
Right.
on this
Yeah.
to the proposed definition, including from individuals, distillers, trade associations, and the United States senators opposing this. And again, it's like one of those things that, I mean, we have places like Corsair in Tennessee. They do 30-gallon barrels. The reason that you use a smaller barrel is because you can age, quote unquote, quicker in a smaller barrel than you can in a bigger barrel. There's a lot more contact for that distillate in it as opposed to a big 50-gallon one. So, trying to overcomplicate this, it basically is what I'm seeing when you try to tell everybody, okay, if you want to call something, an oak drum or an oak barrel, this is what it has to mean, and that just would have been way too limiting in my.
I'm curious as to why that even was approached. If they had, a lobbyist in their ear who was saying this is if we can get everybody on board to only use these, but that includes the entire world, and there's no way that's ever going to fly.
Right, and I think what that speaks to is sometimes these people just have too much time on their hands and they don't really understand. They're like, oh well, if we just called it oak barrel, like it would mean the same thing for everybody. That's a great idea. They don't think about like actually really knowing the industry and how detrimental that could be, to a lot of producers and stuff like that. So fortunately, that's one that they are not going to pursue, which is really great.
Well, when you have 700 responses, I think that
Yeah,
fairly.
yeah, that was pretty funny. Um, Now, onto one that we both found interesting as well that you brought up was the multiple distillation claims. So part of this proposal is to define distillation as a single run through a pot still or through a single distillation of a column still or reflux still. The proposal would also have maintained the current rule that only additional distillations beyond those required to meet the product's production standards may be counted as additional distillations. Now, for our people at home, when if you are familiar with distillations and stuff like that, you're just kind of like, whoa, like yeah, that doesn't seem too complicated and stuff like that. But we have heard of different vodkas, particularly vodka, where they talk about being distilled 22 times.
Yeah, 60
times,
times, 30
times.
times.
Now,
Right. Yeah.
it touches on why they make that claim here, but do you want to explain plates and why people consider plates another form of distillation and what plates are?
Sure. So specifically when you're looking at a coffee still or a column still, you're looking at a tall cylindrical tube in which there are lots of different chambers on that tube, and so you can slide in different perforated plates into the tube, and you can put in one. Sometimes you can put in 30. Sometimes you can put in 60. And what happens is every time the vapor is rising through that column, it hits a plate, it collects, and it condenses, and it drops back down. And so in theory, every single time it touches a plate is a new point of contact, and therefore a new point of distillation. So it's moving from liquid into vapor, back into liquid, and back into vapor again. And plates come in all different forms and sizes, and they have different names. Bubble plates, and I can't even think of some of the other ones. So you can get different style and different output depending on what plates you insert into that column still. And that's why people will say that, it's been distilled 60 times. It's not that or 30 times or 20 times. It's not that it's gone through the still an entire time, that they've cleaned out the still and put the juice back into it and then distilled it again. It's that it's hit every single one of those plates and therefore has been distilled that amount of times. At least that's the claim. So now TTB is removing that as an option, or at very least saying that we will discuss that later. Was my understanding.
Yeah, and to further expand upon the plates and stuff like that, theoretically with the rising of those vapors, that stuff that gets stuck on these plates is what they refer to as like the impurities and things like that. So the vapors that continue to go up, the ones that don't get stuck, like that's like your quote unquote purest form of the alcohol, right? So having all these different plates there, when it finally hits that arm and starts to come back down, like that's your purest product. So people are going to talk about distillation and that kind of numbers, like the 22, the 30, the 60, but really it's just kind of, it's really not running through the entire still again. So it's
a little what's the word I'm looking for?
misleading.
It's a little misleading. I mean, because it's factual, but it's also not
right.
The average consumer assumes that when you're talking about a distillation, you're talking about a single run.
Right. And so, and that's where hopefully this will clean it up a little bit. And so this one received, support, of the definition of what an actual distillation means. And that's going to be a full run through the entire still. The plates would no longer be considered parts, or would be considered their own individual distillation. So if you had, a 30 plate system, you could no longer claim that this was distilled 30 times, which I think will be great, because first of all, I just think people sound like dipshits when they say that anyways. So I'll have to hear that less, which is nice.
Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, just a little bit more, transparent.
I think you and I are on the same page that the more that the general consuming public knows, the better off we all are.
Correct. 100%. And then or at least the last focus point that I had was talking about age statements on whiskeys, rum, cognac, and brandy. And when I initially read this, I kind of read it as, we're going to start holding different companies and different spirits, in particular rum, to a new style of standard where you have to list the youngest distillate in that spirit to be listed on the bottle. Now, that's how it read to me initially. Upon diving a little bit deeper into it, it's really not the case. The rum that is being imported into our country cannot be released to customs or any other person may pick up without a certificate issued by an official duly authorized by the appropriate foreign country. So, for example, if we say something like Zacapa 23, my original thought was they'll no longer be able to put 23 on there because they have what some people say like 7-year-old rum in there in addition to a bunch of other rums. But they have to put 7 on there instead of 23. Now, my misinterpretation, when I figured out actually what it means is that, like, no, as long as Guatemala certifies that that's legit rum, then the U.S. will release it into our marketplace. Now, this goes for the cognac, this goes for the Scotch, Irish, and Canadian whiskeys. What I will say that is a positive about this new regulation and stuff like that is the TTB historically has never had to listen to other people's requirements for stuff. It's always kind of been like this, okay, if you want the rules for Scotch to be that, we'll do it, but we aren't going to really enforce it. We don't really care what you think it should be. We're America, right? Through this, we are now giving a shit what the rules and compliance of those laws in their respective countries now mean. And they have to have these certificates. So you won't, or hopefully you won't see like people doing like the copyright infringement and saying things or you won't see like Irish Scotch or anything like that, So that is the positive that does come out of it. I was hoping for the moon, but I got a little bit outside.
No, I think this is great. I mean, I think that what this does, this is greater guarantee for the consumer that they're getting what they assume that they're getting. And it's nice to have a government body stepping up and actually doing the work to guarantee that.
Yeah. It's. I
mean, to your Zacapa point, though, they're not going to remove the 23 because the 23 isn't an age statement; it's a recipe number, and so it's part of the it's part of the trademark for Zacapa, and it's a little that alone is a little misleading, which is kind of unfortunate, because people just assume that it's 23 years old. But them's the breaks.
Well, there's been label changes. I mean, it's very similar to like the Florida Cana situation, whereas Florida Cana used to say X amount of years old, then that was changed to slow aged. Zacapa used to be 23 years old. That was then the definition was changed. Oh, now it's the recipe, or maybe it's the altitude, or what the fuck ever they want to say. And and of course that's what we want is more of the transparency, within these spirits. And I think what's really cool is that the TTB is finally taking those steps. Now, this is a huge document, and like I said, it's 140 pages, but you're not doing anything better right now, so go out and read it. It can be a little confusing. So if you just want the breakdown as we kind of just described, Matt Petrick, again, one of my favorite writers, broke it down. That's on his website, cocktailwonk.com. But we still have some time here. How about you talk about your vodka? What do you think was so interesting about vodka?
What I thought was really interesting about vodka is historically, TTB has labeled vodka as flavorless, odorless, and without color, and that's how vodka was defined. It was kind of what it wasn't, and so they've removed all of that, and now they've left themselves pretty much with vodka cannot be aged. It's kind of the only thing that they have in there. I mean, they still have other things like it still can contain a limited amount of sugar and citric acid, which it always could anyway. Which I mean, people should know that your rum, your tequila, your whiskeys, not bourbons, but American whiskeys can contain a little bit of sugar and can contain a little bit of additives in there as well. And that's a topic for a whole other time. But the fact that they've removed this odorless, colorless, flavorless descriptor as to what vodka is, I think is kind of a step in the right direction, because vodka has flavor. If you taste 3 vodkas in a row and you can't taste the difference, then something's wrong with you.
Oh boy, that's too funny.
Or you just ended up with vodka all from the same distillery.
Maybe that was it.
That sucks.
That's great. Okay, so I do have one more question for you. I thought this was a question that was posed the other day via Facebook on one of our mutual friends. And the question was like, what should I do with my day to like structure it? Like, what are the things that I should add into it? So I kind of have a schedule and stuff like that. And so I threw out a suggestion that I thought was important and things like that. But I want to change it up a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
Now, for all of our industry professionals out there who, are having a lot of free time, unfortunately, right now, what are the things, or what are some of the maybe some suggestions that you have for either bartenders, bar managers, or whatever to do every day until this quarantine is over? Like, or something that you think they should do that's gonna, when this is all said and done, they'll be better for it.
Oh, uh, go outside for at least 10 minutes.
Okay.
Like look at the sun. Don't look at the sun, but allow the sun to be on your skin for at least 10 minutes.
And
Breathe some like fresh air. I think that'll be a good one.
now, is that going to make them better at their job?
It'll mean that you're probably sane, at least a little bit more
Okay.
sane. So, in theory, that'll make you better at your job.
That's good. That's good. Any other suggestions for people out there? I mean, 10 minutes is great, but there are 24 hours in the day, and we're doing this every day. So
Every day. Okay.
how about an hour?
Right.
What's something they can do for an hour?
For an hour. Holy moly. That'll make you better at your job. I want to say like read a book, but that might be over some people's heads. How about watch some go back and find some old YouTube videos of cocktail videos and get re-inspired, or go watch some old Julia Childs and Jacques Pepin of cooking techniques.
I like that. That's a good one.
And put those into your routine and be inspired by those. I think finding inspiration and technical skill and being able to merge the two. I think oftentimes my problem with young bartenders comes with their lack of technical skill and their overabundance of ego and self-worth when it comes to their skill behind the bar.
Yeah.
So I think developing some of that skill right now with some foundation is always, you're never going to go wrong.
Right. Okay. That's good. That's definitely something for people to think about. For myself, I think you're right. Like the book thing might be a little too much, but I definitely encourage as much book reading as possible. There's a lot of really great stuff out there. Florida Atlantic University is offering a free course on hospitality.
That's right. Yeah, and that's so cool.
There's a lot of other schools that are doing stuff like that, but I thought, that's that one obviously hits pretty close to home. That class starts, I believe, on Monday or Tuesday.
Are you going to do that?
Yeah, I read.
That's really neat. I'd like to hear your feedback.
Yeah, I registered for it. It was really interesting because as I put it out, kind of into the ether through my social media, and I had a lot of people hitting me up being like, "Do I have to pay $30?" I'm like, I have no idea what you guys clicked on, but no, like. So it's a free class, and you get like a little certificate. Like you're not going to get college credit out of it or anything. But the other thing that I think people should do, and this was actually inspired by some of the things that you said in our conversation earlier, on this podcast, is that if you can, and maybe not every day, but at least every few days, reach out to somebody in this industry that you respect, that maybe you don't actually know and that you'd like to know, and ask them questions and just kind of pick their brains on things. I'm telling you,
that's great advice.
I think people often find themselves way too intimidated by that situation, and I personally am not. I mean, even though like I get nervous, like asking people to do like legitimate things, but in terms of just like asking questions, I'm always pretty confident when it comes to that. But I got to tell you, more often than not, especially in this industry, people are more than willing to talk to you. And because all of us have so much time on our hands right now, they'll definitely be willing to talk to you. And
yeah, we're all looking for a little bit of that connection now,
totally.
anyway.
And I think with that being the case, reach out, see if you can find yourself a mentor. I saw a conversation unfold the other day where it was like, how did you learn about agave? How did you learn about this? And I was like, well, I had really great mentors. I still have great mentors, and I read a lot of books, and I just, try to go out and experience as many tastings and stuff like that as I possibly could. And they were like, well, how do you get a mentor? And that's a really weird question, right?
It's a great question.
It is a great question, but it was a weird question. I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, my mentors, like they kind of like they came into my life in different ways. So I don't think there's one standard way to do it. But if you want to have someone like that, you need to be that catalyst for it. And you need to reach out to that person and, extend that olive branch. And I think now more than any other time is the time to do it. So,
yeah, agreed.
So that would be my little bit of advice. Reach out to someone that you respect and would like to know more, and go from there.
I like it. That's a very cheerful ending.
Wow.
Very cheerful advice.
What can I say? My 2-year-old has made me soft. So, but yeah, so you guys, we have a little new system that we're recording on. So hopefully everything sounds good on this. Again, always reach out to us with questions and stuff like that. At the end of the day, we are going to get through this. It's going to be, we're going to be better on the other end. But I don't know. You got anything else to add at this time, Chris?
I don't know, man. I'm excited can't wait to give everybody hugs. It's been one of the hardest things for me is not being able to hug people.
Yeah,
so.
I'm definitely with you on that one, man. So I'm going to give you a little virtual cheers. So, ting, ting, ting. Cheers. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. I'll see you soon.
Later, man.
Take care, guys.
The Good Bottle Podcast was recorded at the Good Bottle Shop in Sacramento, California. Music is by Leon Moore and Chase Moore. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Good Bottle Podcast.